Welcome to Beyond the Blend, the podcast that goes behind the science and talks to the people at the heart of the lubricant market, telling the real story of the people who make the lubricant market move. With real insight and honest conversations, we aim to show off the people's side from across the entire lubricant supply chain. Join me, Steve Knapp, and Rob Taylor as we delve behind the scenes of the lubricant industry. Let's go. Let's start with a quick 5 from 5. René, Durban sunshine or Stockholm snow?
Durban sunshine.
A lab bench or a customer meeting?
Customer meeting.
Early morning walk or a lazy brunch?
Lazy brunch.
A cozy night in with a good book or a night out with friends?
Cozy night in, come on.
And the last of the 5 from 5, a walk by the sea or long coffee and fika?
Ooh, a walk by the sea.
Not surprising for a Durban lady, right?
No.
Not surprising for a Durban lady. So welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Blend. Today, I'm joined by René Abrahams, Technical Marketing Development Manager at Perstorp Group, based in Sweden. René is an analytical chemist whose career has taken her from Durban in South Africa to Stockholm in Sweden via long spells with Ninus, where she worked on naphthenic base oils, greases, transformer fluids. She's been a key technical voice on bio-based and re-refined transformer liquids, helping utilities move towards circular, lower carbon solutions. And today at Perstorp, she's focused on innovating fluids, working on solutions that try to balance performance with a lower carbon footprint. We're going to talk about where that journey started and where she learned along the way, and how she sees the future of sustainable lubrication. René, before we jump into our conversation, please can I ask you to take some time to introduce yourself a little bit more to our listeners and bring your journey to life?
Thank you, Steve, for having me. And wow, so that sounded impressive. And sometimes you don't sit and reflect, right, on what one has done over the 25 plus years. I won't say exactly how many, but sure, how it started at an interesting time in history. Also, I think, being South African, growing up, during apartheid, and then entering the workplace when things were just beginning to change. We just got into democracy, and entering into the oil industry in the mid-90s. So there was so much change happening. And I think that just in general, being open to change and then being young and taking on whatever challenges came your way was very much maybe the core or the success or the thread that ran through then from there onwards into my career. So yes, we were probably even the first group of women to work in the lab in a large oil refinery. So not only was it about gender issues in the workplace, but it was also about a country going through change and also a workplace having to understand how they had to implement new policies around a whole range of issues that's led to be addressed, because democracy doesn't just happen overnight. When somebody presses, there's an election result, and no, it's got to change culturally in so many ways. I always think I was born at the right time to then be entering the workforce precisely at the year after we became a democratic country. And then invariably, I think for a lot of South Africans that in my sort of age group, it's impossible not to be like an activist of some sort, because you always had to sort of fight for your rights in one way or the other, or try and express your opinion. So it was so having that sort of activist streak, or like a rebel with a cause. And when I got to Sweden many years later, I felt quite a lot like a rebel without a cause. So when you don't have something to strive for or fight against, sometimes that's also perhaps can take you on another journey. But I think, how, just starting out in the lab with all sorts of an exciting time, but interesting, a lot of challenges, and then sort of moving up through the ranks, being somewhat politically involved or involved in trade unions. I was really involved in a lot of trade union activity in my early years there. Worked my way up through the trade union ranks while I was still employed, and I managed to do some interesting things like sitting around at big boardroom table, being like about 23 or 24, and doing a wage negotiations for like 45,000 people in the oil industry in South Africa. Because in those days, the oil industry, the unions, it included the guys who pump gas. So I don't know if you know, in South Africa, there's people, not only the people who work in the refinery, but also the ones who sort of fill up for you, and so that's why the numbers is so big. So when the oil industry would be doing its annual wage negotiations, it'd be collective bargaining and so on, and then that is also where you had to implement policies that had to then be about making amends for the injustices of the past and things like that. And then coupled with that, I also obviously got involved in the sort of gender issues, because when women entering the workplace, especially in an oil refinery, was challenging. I mean, with the coffee rooms, we had to tell the guys, you can't really have your centerfold pin up on the wall when I come in here. So the early years were fun, challenging, and I think because I was young and also there was a great spirit in the country of optimism. In those early years of a new democracy, everybody was, everybody was sort of keen. It was good. It was good, actually.
Yeah, you're sharing with us things that so many of us just can't really comprehend, right? I was very fortunate that I did spend a number of years in South Africa in the mid-90s. So, and I saw still repairing the past happening in front of my eyes, and through my leadership, I had to make choices that institutionally were in place to still correct things that were clearly very wrong. But you were a child growing up in that environment, and before we jump into the career, as a child and education and where you are now, that is such a distance, isn't it, from the going to school, which I don't imagine was easy in itself, right? So maybe you could just open a bit of that up for us.
It's not as well. I would say it's not as hard as you think. So interestingly, because he was segregated, and it was very much a divide and conquer kind of approach by the government of the day. So I belong to a certain population group, which was the mixed race called colored, and so we were segregated, meaning that I lived in a colored neighborhood and went to a colored school, and in a funny way, this environment felt safe. It was encapsulated in some way, because as a child, you don't think further than. So this is your own community, your own culture, your own language, and you're living in your own little bubble in a way. So it was actually good childhood. It's only afterwards when you start to understand that at no point was I free. It was like we went to the beach, but why did we only go to that beach? Because we didn't go to any other beach because we weren't allowed to go to any of the beaches, and things like that. And also, why, the buses we caught, why did we only catch that bus? We didn't catch the other bus. And so there's things you don't understand as a child. You're just sort of perfectly happy and so on. But of course, in the 80s, I was in high school. So yes, there was protesting, and it was an interesting time because some of our teachers would be we had a mixed bag of teachers. So some would encourage us to go on the protest, but others would say it's in your best interest to be educated, kind of thing. Like my maths teacher in particular she'd be really angry if we went and we skipped maths class and things like that. But by went, I mean, because there would literally just be sort of buses would show up outside the school, and you'd understand what the protest was about, and whoever wanted to get on got on the bus. And so yes, obviously I got on the bus a good couple times, but I didn't tell my parents. So this is interesting because my mother was very protective, and she was very much for the line, don't break the rules, kind of like moms are. So I know I would never tell my mother that I did that.
Yeah, and when we think about sort of that, I mean, it's incredibly insightful for us to hear as listeners that as a child it was normal, i.e., safe, protected, normal. But as you were growing, you started to think about the differences and then the injustices, and then started to do something about it as best you could, of course, without within that backdrop of oppression and fear, I imagine. Having spoken to so many people about this while I was out there, it is indeed a dark piece of history that you lived in. But where was that during that education time? Where was that moment of inspiration that connected René to a chemistry background? I mean, where did you start to realize that this is a space I excel in and I'm interested in? Was there a person? Was there a moment? Was it just something that grew within?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I would say because I was a reader, and that is maybe something that also differentiates me from my peers at the time. So I mean, I'm a long way from where I come from, right? I am literally just like the girl from the hood, Jenny from the block, and so I'm really, a lot of my peers are still in that place, kind of thing. So I'm a long way from home, and maybe your question is really about what really, not so much about chemistry, but what took you there. And it started with reading and just a love of books. And I remembered that we had a very, very small community library because, of course, there was very limited resources allocated for certain races. And it didn't take long for me to have read all the books in the library that was for my age group. And the librarian had said to me, well, now you've read all the books. I'm going to be forced now to let you read the adult books because you've read everything here. And so reading puts places seeds, and you start dreaming and you think other things, and it was really I actually think that was a spark to a way out, or having that imagination that things are possible or other things are possible. So having read all the books in the library at a very young age was definitely something. And then also that I did sometimes bunk school to go to the library. Like we had to jump over the fence. We jumped over the fence at school. It was high school. I'm talking about high school, not primary school. So my love of reading, I think, helped me along. And then, of course, in high school, science, it didn't take long to because those days also, maths and science, there was only sort of one small class, about 20 people that did maths and science together at that time. And you'd be put in one class and so on. And also doing maths on what we called higher grade. There would be like the standard grade. And so doing maths and science in higher grade, there wasn't many, and it just naturally moved into there. And then it didn't take long for chemistry to take hold. I think I was pretty set on chemical engineering for a long time. And then it was really in the last 6 months that I changed just the pure chemistry.
Yeah, because throughout all of that, I mean, you're right to highlight in the beginning, not only did you have the sort of demarcation of different races within that, and your category, as you called it, you had the gender part as well, right? So you probably had this multi-layer of reduced opportunity that you had to fight your way through. And underlined in your comments is probably quite a sort of determined individual to get out of that, and I can only imagine what it took to jump through. And we'll talk a bit about that now. But Durban, has Durban always been the sort of the heartbeat of your calling, right? It's the place that you call home still?
Tethered sounds like a bad word, but definitely, I mean, sort of committed. I have all my family's there. My parents are there, and my sisters. And in fact, I'm alone here in Sweden, and I don't have a family of my own or anything like that. So I do go home twice a year. So yes, I am sort of forever tethered to Durban. Durban is home. I think the food, the weather, it's soul food. The people are warm, so to say, compared to, because I do love Joburg. Joburg's my second. I love the people in Joburg because they're so in your face and gritty, and they are so open and challenging and full of opportunity and optimism, but also rough on the edges. And Joburg has the people. I love Joburg, but Durban is, it's that subtropical palm tree beaches, good Indian food, and it's lovely. It's lovely.
Well, you're painting a wonderful picture of Durban, and I must say I used to visit there quite a lot. We had, when I was with the Shell business there, we had one very large customer, Toyota. I had a Toyota car plant there, and we used to do quite a bit there. So I would be in Durban quite regularly, and you've taken me back to the wonderful Indian food, because it really is quite special there. And you might correct me now. I'm going back into my memory. Was there something called a bunny chow?
Yes. It's usually my first port of call when I get home. One needs to eat a bunny chow.
Tell people what that is.
So a bunny chow it's basically curry. So it can be like a beans curry or chicken curry or mutton curry. And it's served in either half a loaf of bread or a loaf of bread or a quarter. You can order a quarter. And it's the loaf of bread that's sort of been dug out, and inside the curry is filled, and it's a significant amount of gravy, and the gravy needs to ooze over the top of it needs to overflow.
Delicious.
And this is a bunny chow, and it needs to have a decent amount of punch in the chili. So yeah.
There we go. So we described some very important parts of Durban there, right? The food, the bunny chow, the weather, and of course, there's a whole history behind the education side of things that, I'm sure you've spoken about to many people, because it's things that need to continue to be spoken about, right? So we don't forget, we don't go back, we don't lose all of those things. And the fight that your generation had to create opportunity is important. But I am going to move us on for the benefit of the conversation. You did leave Durban, right? So all of this good stuff, all of this fight, all of this sort of struggle, and eventually you swapped Durban for Sweden. Now, having been in Durban during its peak of warmth, and having been in Sweden in its peak of cold, the question, what on earth was the motivation to move from one to the other?
Well, now you've put that introduction like that, I don't know how to answer the question. No, okay, here goes. So yes, I was briefly married to a Swedish man, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But that resulted in me moving to Sweden, and so even though I was very much ready anyway to leave Durban, as I had left for a while the oil industry and then went fully into the environmental sector. And I was working as an environmental consultant. Right, so because of the democracy, the government had to rewrite a significant amount of laws. And the environmental ones came on pretty early. So they were because the new constitution was extremely advanced. So South Africa is just like this third world country with like a fantastic first world constitution. And then all the laws had to be changed. So I got quite stuck into environmental law and environmental issues, and I was working as an environmental advisor at the oil refinery. And then I left and I joined a consulting company, which invariably had a branch in Sweden, in Stockholm, and I sometimes drive past the office. So there were perhaps links to Sweden there indirectly already. Yeah, and I guess just I was on a holiday in Kenya, and I met a Swedish man, and that really is how things started there. But yeah, it didn't work out. I did consider going back, of course, when the relationship ended, but then I just thought, oh no, I don't want to make any rash decisions. When one is going through a divorce, you think, oh no, let's not make any rash. Let's just sort of put the feet on the ground for a year or two and decide what you want to do, kind of thing. So yeah, and then I stayed, and I think I've started sort of warming up to Stockholm.
Yeah, so I mean, because there's still things going on. I mean, this is not a South African chat, but it's great because it's a topic that's rich with sort of learning and insight. There's still challenge going on there today, right? There's still real challenges going on today, and I guess moving out of Durban to Stockholm maybe was a little bit more stable. I don't know if that's the right word, or at least an environment where there was less risk. I don't know. I mean, just exploring that with you. Did you find it more comfortable to be there? Like, it must have been different to have been, you mentioned it earlier in your introduction, a rebel without a cause or with a cause. I can't remember what you said, but you're now out of Durban where, you've got this backdrop, this political backdrop of, doing the right thing for the right reason with the first world democracy, but then we're into Stockholm where actually things are a little bit more passive, maybe a little bit more normal. How did that transition go?
Yeah, it was quite an adjustment. I had to re-find myself again, and try and determine what was important to me and what did I want to embody. And so, and I think one of the reasons I'm here in Stockholm is two things. One is to fully embody the essence of freedom. And that is, of course, being born in South Africa and then getting an understanding that I wasn't free, and then wanting to fully embody that. And by that I mean is here in Stockholm, of course, I have the freedom, even as a woman, of course, to be on my own and to do as completely as I wish. And I think that freedom and change, these are the two things that I have thrived on and pushed me forward. And these are two things I usually try to embody, and that it changes with time, of course. Sometimes I don't feel like doing things to implement, the essence of being free and always changing. But I think it's really served me well. So this environment, I mean, it's a very egalitarian and very feminist environment, I would say. Having said that, though, now, as in a lot of European cities, I guess, the right-wing politics has been getting stronger. So that has also impacted. But it's true, there are additional challenges. So I didn't get involved here. When I came back, I didn't want to get involved in any activism with regards to racism and things like that. And that is because I felt like I've done my bit. I felt as if, hey, I did racism, even 501, got the T-shirt and all of that. I'm not coming here to do racism 101 20 years later. So there is still a lot of people who need racism 101. That is correct. But I let others take on that that activism. Yeah. So I think for me, I feel like there are things going on, but I've evolved from that. I don't want to engage in. I kind of want to go into the next level, the next frontier, and so for me, that is more about what keeps me is the art and the culture, and I think that is where we can get our inspiration from. I think that especially in these times that we are living in, and I talked about embodying freedom and change, but now I'm focused on embodying peace and freedom, because I think the more of us who sort of sit and in everything we do, whether in your personal relationships and work relationships, it's like I'm going for peace. Yeah, because I just want that energy to spread everywhere. And so these are the things I focus myself on. So I don't sort of engage in too much activism. It's more about being somewhat active in the art culture here in Stockholm, and also because now there is a little bit. I mean, okay, there are some galleries that are set up and focus on being a space for the African diaspora artists to come together. So you'll find me often there. In things like that. So I think that's really now I like that now.
I mean, thank you for sharing this insight with our listeners, because I mean, the early René clearly was, whatever went on in your early informative years has made you very purposeful. I mean, I'm hearing real purposeful direction, and clearly what gives you completeness as a person is to be able to define freedom, change, and now peace as almost that direction. And I think that's so incredible to find that. Yeah, because we go to work, we do a job, and we get carried away with a job, but we don't necessarily always find our real purpose behind things. So perhaps your background has given you that extra clarity of purpose that maybe people find later in life, and maybe you've just found it a little bit sooner, and you're able to follow that through with a bit more clarity and a bit cleaner. So thanks for sharing that.
Ready to stop guessing how lubricant buyers truly decide? Well, come and see us, the Plan, Grow, Do team, at the 30th ICIS World Base Oils and Lubricant Conference in London on the 4th of February. Join our exclusive Buyer Revolution workshop, or tune in to our one-off session on buyer behaviour, alongside an event where you'll gain strategic clarity from over 70 experts and secure essential face-to-face time with the entire global market. Be in the room where strategy meets profitability. Search for World Base Oils and Lubricants now to secure your access.
You talk about change being one of your three. I don't know if you've substituted change with peace or you still keep change in, but I like the three. Change now talks a little bit around sustainability and all of this work that you're involved in. Because when you first went to Scandinavia, you were in Ninus, am I right? Was it Ninus?
Yes, Ninus, the clinic, and I was based at the production site.
Yeah, and was it there that you started to see sustainability? You started to see this sort of environmental aspect coming through. I mean, was that the first place that you experienced that trigger in your value chain?
So I would say that, I think because I came with the environment. When I moved to Sweden, I left South Africa as an environmental consultant. And I in fact then registered for a couple of courses at Stockholm University because I thought I really wanted to continue in this field, because I was a bit involved in, when I left South Africa, I was quite involved in air quality. In fact, I was briefly the chairperson of the NACA, which is the National Association of Clean Air in South Africa. And then when I left, I've done so many things, Steve, you can't keep up.
You have. Yeah.
I was very involved, and that's a community of about 300 people, and there'd been an annual conference. I was a chairperson of a conference, I think, before I left. So when I came to Stockholm, I thought, oh yes, I'm going to continue in this vein. I have left the oil behind me. So we got to the university, did some courses, and it was really about, that course was quite intense. It was about models and modeling how various pollutants enter into various environments, all from the soil to the air to the water, etc. And after doing this course, I thought to myself, oh no, this is so much of a science, it's an art, and it just felt a little bit too abstract for me, even though it was so scientific and intense. So then I sort of quit that vein, and I thought, well, I'd better start looking for a job now. And then along came, Nina's. I found Nina's, and they found me. They were so excited to have me at the time. I think that they looked at my CV and they said, what? They said, when you come, you shall interview for 3 different departments, my dear. And then I landed in the technical department, which I loved, and it was lubricants. And then it just evolved with time. And I think having done the expat thing, I did my expat thing in Singapore. So, and there was a lot of lubricants, of course, and there was a significant amount of traveling, and doing a technical support to like 10 different APAC countries for, my sort of 2 and a bit years of the expat thing. And then coming back and switching to the transformer oil. And I think that's really where I latched onto really implementing in these sustainable products. I loved every minute of that, actually. So to be honest, I was at no point interested in transform oil. And I'm like, at Nina's, it was another department, and I was a middle manager, and with all the middle managers, we'd sit together and obviously have our monthly meetings. Everyone's feeding back, blah, blah, blah. And when the person who was running transform oils, I would just sit there and think, good luck. There's no ways I'm ever interested in that level of complexity, that level of problem, that I don't even want to know how you formulate that stuff. Like, go away. That was my attitude. And then I came back from Singapore, and my boss said to me, transform worlds for you, my dear. And I threw myself into it. So this is the other thing about me. I often maybe say no to things initially, but then once I'm in it, if you give me time, give me time, and then I'll run rings around you in the show. So, of course, what do? I then manage a portfolio of 27 various transform oils, of which I all of the formulations and so on. I joined the IEC, which is the Electrotechnical Committee in Sweden. Then you have to be nominated, so you join the working groups on a national level, so you are the Swedish representative. So yes, I was attending IEC meetings, so there I am, the South African, voting on behalf of the whole of Sweden on electrical technical standards. So that's to say, give me time, and it's trouble. If you see René coming, you better be ready for me.
I mean, that's so cool. Like, I scribble notes as we talk, and I'm hearing, unions, chairing committees, leadership, and it's starting to form in my head. Somebody that has to be driving the bus versus a passenger on the bus, right? Would I be fair in that assumption, René? Would it be fair to say that if there's a committee or a movement that I believe in, my voice will be part of shaping where this goes? Would it be fair to say that?
Yes, I think that's you're pretty perceptive, Steve, and I like the way you phrased that with such nice phrasing. Thank you. So yes, that's a good way to sum me up. And yeah, and so then I really loved really getting involved in making those products, being the like a bio-based product and a re-refined product, etc., and being involved in, and my role has always been sort of half in, half out. So you're really close to even production, manufacturing, and so on, and specs and all those things. But you talking to the customer, to a large extent, and then also sort of doing a bit of market management about how to position something in the marketplace and so on. So all of that together, which was it was fantastic to bring some sustainable products to life and see the whole process through. That is also what I love. So I'm commercially focused and things like that. No, I'm still technical at heart, but like this little bridging position of being close to a customer. I can still do some conference presentations and customers and things, but I still like to be in the lab or in the plant and really talking to the engineer, like, how are we going to make this kind of thing.
Yeah, fantastic. And so was this Nina's role the first time you had that end customer engagement piece? Was that so? That was that again took your skills and put them in a different environment. Did you take to that easily, or was that something that you found was quite challenging at the start?
Well, obviously, being an environmental consultant, that was, I would still say that was one of them challenging. That was quite challenging, because then you're being a consultant is, sometimes it's tough with the customers. And I would say, I was young. I was like, the 30-ish, like early 30s. And so there were some tough instances, tough meetings that I was engaged. So that really toughened me up a little bit there. But then, yes, correct. And then at Nina's, just getting in on a significant amount of customer meetings and watching how others did it and then forming my own way forward. So this is the other interesting thing, is it's so tricky sometimes when coming from Africa, from an somewhat African culture, and stepping into rooms in the Western European or Western rooms. And this is the interesting thing, like, what is, professional? You have to be professional. And what is professional? And sometimes for me, I still have to culturally adjust. Professional means European or Western in some kind of way. And so that's also an adjustment. So I'm always wary of the spaces I step into. It's an awareness I take with me, and I adjust to the room. But now I think as one gets older, you're like, the room needs to adjust to me a little bit.
And quite right as well. I have to say, yeah, I guess you speak there about those customer meetings or those differences and the adjustment. We could take people back into a world where I used to look after the mining sector when I was with Shell. And that was a heavy, and in Shell in South Africa, by the way, specifically. And that was a very heavy Afrikaan mine captain. They had all the power. They treated people quite brutally. I want to say disrespectfully, but I don't think it was. I think it was just brutally and culturally. And that was a very tough environment for our young sellers to operate in, actually. And nothing could coach them or train them to do it. They had to just observe it, adapt to it, and be robust. And of course, many of the young people we brought into that sales team were Black South Africans, and they were going into an environment where the white Afrikaan male was king. And as you describe, that sort of regeneration or that learning, that process of becoming comfortable and confident to hold your position at the table certainly isn't an easy one for many to achieve. So now that you're in this position where you're saying, hey, René's at the table, you must adapt to how I am, that's a full circle moment, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about just letting the personality come through, So I am quite something. I'm pretty much an introvert also, so I am sometimes more on the quiet side, observing, listening. I also talk when I need to talk, than to blabber on kind of thing. So that's just my general personality. But I think having the courage to speak up had to be something that took time, to learn and adjust to. But now I don't. It's obviously I've changed since then. So it's not like I'm sitting there in the room. Like one would be many years ago. Having a point to make, trying to find the moment to make it. How are you gonna put it in a way that it doesn't offend people and all these sorts of towing around in eggshells and all sorts of things to make other people feel comfortable. So always us, always being the ones making the adjustment, So now it's like actually, it's almost like, and this is the thing I feel in general about Black women. We always do the work. We do the work for everybody. But now it's like, no. And sometimes you might get this stereotype, whatever, angry Black woman and so on, stereotype. But it's really because we just like, no, it's time for you to do your own work now and to realize, that the other people in the room and just take some extra consideration instead of us sitting here and doing all the thinking and the working and everything for you, really. So I think that's definitely changed. And so those kind of things, you can stereotypes and might be controversial or whatever, but how you want to approach those kind of things.
I mean, I think there's some big reflective moments for listeners of Beyond the Blend here. And I guess, is there an encouragement for people now? I mean, do you see more equity in the meetings you attend? Do you see more respect and diversity at play? I mean, I'd be interested because you're uniquely placed to have observed this. Do you see this, or do you see still a reticence or something going on there?
So, I mean, I do see a level of diversity. Yes, I do see it. Though it's interesting. I think I've evolved a little bit. So when I walk into a room, I don't look at the gender distribution. I look at the culture of the room. Like what's. So it doesn't matter if there's a lot of women in there or whatever. It's what is this room about? Is it open? Is it innovative? Are we just taking? Is there any passive aggressive conversations happening unnecessary? Is there somebody is sitting there strategically positioning themselves in some kind of way? It's like we don't need all of that. We're here to do ABC. This is it. And so I think it's more about that I look for now. Again, I feel like those other things about being an advocate for gender issues in the workplace, I feel I did 20 years ago. So now it's literally, okay, this is it. And so I don't know what goes on in someone else's head or the other people in the room or what they are thinking of me. I don't know, and kind of thing. So I think that's also changed for me, Steve. It's I want to evolve. I think I want to be let's be at the frontier of the next. For those of us who feel we've overcome all these other challenges, we will just take it as is. We want a certain culture in the room, culture of openness, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean that's really what's going to make organizations successful. I mean, you've got to have good functioning teams, and for me, that is the most critical. People you can work with. And I honestly think that the reason I've been successful in my career is because people like to work with me. You got to be someone, work well with people, and people must like working with you.
I mean, I think there's a big takeaway there, right? I mean, focus on yourself first. Focus on yourself first and be the best that you can be. Be that considerate, be that inclusive, be that collaborative. Because you're right. I mean, my experience of what I would classify high functioning teams, and I'm very fortunate I see many of them around the lubricant world. It's where the culture is absolutely nailed on and understood. Where the teams struggle is where there are these siloed agendas, this passive aggressive, as you called it, this ulterior motive, and that still goes along, right? People are still protecting careers, versus protecting a legacy. And again, I go back to your three: freedom, change, and peace. Kind of driving that legacy through your work is something that I'm really, really sort of delighted to have learned today, because I think it makes a difference in leadership, right? It's almost like it doesn't matter whether it's sustainability fluids at Ninas or whether it's innovative fluids in Perstorp. It's still the same core leadership. As we move out of the Ninas space, I mean, let's just drop a little bit of the work history back in behind this slightly more philosophical conversation, which I think is powerful in itself for people to learn from. You are now at Perstorp and working on synthetic esters, and you're on the STLE program as well, delivering. And am I right, or have I misinterpreted that?
No, so I haven't joined any industry groups yet. No, it's been really great. So I joined Perstorp at a time when we are literally starting from zero and building a team. I've been there like 3 years now, so this is something completely new in a way. And I've thoroughly enjoyed now going back to the chemistry, because I'm literally formulating pure chemistry now. So the synthetic esters are the portfolio. I'm developing the portfolio to a large extent, so that's exciting. And now bringing them to the marketplace. So now I will be moving more into sort of that external role. So I will be a little more out there. It's been the last sort of 2 years in the background, really doing the groundwork. So again, I really like these kind of roles, the kind of role where you're doing something new, exciting. Like I say, I want to be maybe at the frontier of things, at the next level, or at least for myself as well. And then bringing in the sustainability. And you've my colleague Elisa, she's fantastic and very inspirational. And so working with her and the team is fantastic.
You're this frontier, you're at this front end, this change place again, right? And as you say, you're creating fluids, you're almost putting the chemistry of it together. Are you seeing big shifts? Are you seeing shifts that you can almost now plot the next 10 years in the space of sustainability within the lubricant space? Are you seeing enough? Are you seeing results? Are you seeing things? And are you confident what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years?
I would still say that people prioritize performance first still, and then price, and then like PCFs. So I think we still see this kind of trend where price, performance, and then the product carbon footprint follows on third. But I definitely see the shifting in time, and I think that if the industry can give customers a stepwise approach, so that I think it's good that everybody maps out their sustainability vision and then puts themselves on a very clear journey, and then I definitely think there are several organizations that can help everybody along the way. So for sure, I think that having a clear vision, I think a lot of companies do have a vision. I think a lot still have to work on it. Like really understand, if somebody wants to say, I want to be, if you want to have net zero emissions or something like that, or what kind of materials you're using and things like that. So I think organizations still need to put themselves to be clear, truly clear about their plans and their vision. But definitely it's something that's going to happen.
I said, is that proving difficult for organizations?
I mean, yes and no, and I think it's always a balance. I think everybody, of course, has a sustainability department, and they might have the vision, and they make their plans and so on, and then there'll be maybe intention to implement those plans. But sometimes the markets and then projects have to be put on hold because the timing is not right and things like that. So I see those kind of things happening. I think that there are some challenging times in certain industries right now, in the marketplace.
I wonder if we start to see a consumer pull versus a corporate push. And I mean, is there any signs of that happening from a lubricant end user perspective that you
we are
can?
seeing? Some, not all, some. So I would say that it's not like there's a lot of intention, but at the end of the day, maybe 50 to 60% actually do it.
Yeah, because we've seen that over time, of course, with classifications of engine oils, right? People until there's a mandate or till there's a specification that invalidates warranties, that kind of drove people to make change in oil classification. I'm not so sure we're seeing yet the same thinking or need around the sustainability side of things. But I guess what we're seeing is more and more roles within organizations that are focused on sustainability, and certainly generations that are far more aware of its criticality in the future. So the hope is that they'll join the dots, and eventually this becomes a normal thing.
You have to evolve. I mean, I think I've worked for Nina's, which was 95 plus years, and I've worked for Perstorp, which is 140 years. And these are organizations who would only have survived because they have evolved and changed over the century also. So if you don't evolve and change, you're not going to survive. I mean that is quite critical. And I think that now the times we live in also, and we talked about this just already, that just the times it's an interesting time to be alive. There's so much changing, so much happening, and there is no ways we can do the same things we've been doing before. I mean, that you can't, it doesn't work anymore. You have to change. And I think we're getting to just a point in humanity or mankind, we really just have to change now. Yeah, it feels like these times are like, gosh, we need something drastic to shift here.
You've seen change. I mean, you've seen drastic change. You've seen dynamic change. Therefore, I imagine you have this inner belief that nothing is impossible, right? Change can happen. If you could move from that girl that wasn't allowed to go on the bus or wasn't allowed to go to that beach to now somebody that is having been in the unions, in the chairs, in the leadership positions of all this clean air in Joburg when they're burning tires and changing that, all that backdrop that we all know about, to somebody that now is at the forefront of sustainability in lubricants. It gives us great hope. Are you going? I would just sort of ask this question before we sort of wrap down a bit. Do you have plans to go back to Durban then? That is so tricky. Of course, one has this intention of spending 6 months in each country. I mean, if we talk about the retirement years. Yeah, I probably am thinking more in the autumn of your career or the retirement years.
I mean, you never know. I mean, I guess it feels like if I feel I'm done with Stockholm or something like that, then I'll. It's just how I navigate my life, I guess. So I feel like I'm really sort of coming into this place now. Finally, I've been in Sweden for 18 years, and yes, I've been in Sweden and I only feel like now is when I'm like, oh, I actually live here, kind of settling. But this is interesting. I mean, this is what apps, because having left home and perhaps I was always sort of this wayward child. I have 3 siblings. They're all at home, and I'm perhaps the only one that's this sort of child that went off. I live on the other side of the world and all sorts of things. But I think that just being anchored to yourself is an interesting way to live. So then I can't really answer your question because then I might get tethered here and there. Let's see what happens. But of course it is because my sisters are much younger than me, and so I have quite little nephews, like 2 and stuff like that. And so those kind of things pull a little.
Yeah. I can imagine. I guess it depends whether the bunny chow calls loud enough, right? It depends on that. Look, René, thanks for taking us, from Durban to Stockholm through some very reflective and insightful leadership moments and direction from freedom, change, peace, being at the frontier of things, almost your place in the room is now solidified, and one that I hope we can take this virtual meeting into a physical one, because I'll be absolutely thrilled to meet you in person and to continue the conversation. But thank you for taking us through that journey. There are probably so many messages that you share with younger people and maybe your younger self. But if there was that one key reflective moment, maybe the student in Durban starting out again, or the person questioning themselves about leaving one environment and going to another, what might that learning, what might that message be?
Right. Well, firstly, because I don't have any messages to myself, because I think everything has been perfect, and I don't have regrets about anything. But for the future and for others, I would say stay curious. That is without a doubt. Stay open and curious. I think the purpose of life is play. We're here to just explore, have some fun, and even for us older ones and those more grey-haired, stay curious. I don't think that life's options or choices narrow. I think that we just get more intentional about the way we want to go. And so for everybody out there, stay curious.
Yeah, I love it. Be intentional, but stay curious. I think that's a lovely little soundbite that people can jump onto. Look, René, thank you ever so much for joining us on Beyond the Blend. Our audience, I'm certain, will just devour and love this episode. There's so much in it. I guess people can follow your story and find out more. Where would be a good place for them to do so?
Sure. Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, of course, René Abrahams. And then I'll be out and about, maybe LGI and a couple others in Europe.
There we go. So digital and physical, out and about, remaining curious, but intentional. René Abrahams, thanks for joining us on Beyond the Blend.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure. And also to say to you, thanks for being a catalyst for change, actually, and having this podcast.
Lubricant Expo and the Bearing Show North America returns to Detroit from March 17 to 19, 2026. Meet leading companies showcasing the latest technologies in lubrication, bearings, reliability, condition monitoring and plant performance all in one place. You'll join engineering, maintenance, procurement and R&D professionals, plus OEMs and end users. Attend our world-class conference, network and strengthen professional relationships, access workshops and training sessions, all completely free. This is where new partnerships are formed, deals are done, and the future of industrial reliability is shaped. Register now at lubricantexpo.com/NA.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond the Blend. Be sure to follow us to catch next and future episodes as we continue to explore the people within the lubricant market.